Nora, Nora, Bado, Tiranyera, Gogangwa, Tiranyera, Gogangwada, Nora, my wet Wayamati, Nora, Merokedo Wayamati, Tiranyera, Gogangwada, Tiranyera, Gogangwada. Wayamati, Nora, Merokedo Wayamati, Tiranyera, Goganga, Jonathan, Tiranyera, Gogangwada, Tilong the bottom, Pulatina, Maukedo, Hanadogwa, Tilong the bottom, Pojito, Palibadogwa, Merazong the bottom, Pulatina, Maukedo, Hanadogwa. Adalok the bottom, Pulatina, Palibadogwa, Adogwa, Adogwa, Ajeroga, Adogwa, 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 Hana Jeroga, Adogwa. Menandok the bottom, Pulatina, Maukedo, Hanadogwa. Oji lok the bottom, Kedo Jal Palibadogwa, Adogwa, Adogwa, Ajeroga, Adogwa, 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 Hana Jeroga, Adogwa. Nora, men boy, why am I dead? Dog, Nora, Jada Bado, why am I dead? Nora, men sister, why am I dead? Nora, oh, Julie Tinica, Take it down. So for those of you, and I know all of you understand actually very well, the last words I said was, I will go back home. One day, I will go home. Because when I wrote this song, I had left. But the person who packed for me to leave, I was born in a small village called Bajule in Patia district. And I'll keep telling you the story as we progress.
Daimada,
Yes, that song is from Bunyoro and Toro. And so, that song I was taught by a friend of mine called Milton Wapiona at the time. Now it's called Dr. Milton Wapiona. And this is the time when I had realized I had to learn another culture. So I decided to start learning because Milton was very friendly. And I thought I would share with you this because one of the things that is very comforting, especially for some of us who are victims of internal displacement, is that all you need is just a little bit. Just a little bit. So me, I found mine in music. So I then decided to start doing a lot of music from over the country. By here in a group called GENIDA Chapter. That's how I continued. So when we were invited, I thought now it's important to share a little bit of that history with you. So I will play another song which I learned, which I found very interesting, because it also gave me the opportunity to celebrate that is also another thing. The moment to celebrate your spirituality. Even if you are away, that moment is important. I'm aware. Thank you. Now we have a short 10-minute skit for you, which is a dance drum. Mostly it is in the body language and very little dialogue. Enjoy.
Akati silingi moko mama na masanga loledo akumbaki. Mama na masanga akumbaki loledo Uganda moko mama na masanga loledo akumbaki. Mama na masanga akati Uganda moko mama na masanga loledo akumbaki. Birika fumba mwanyi kata konkome malanga ana kwalo fumbo jam. Abana bange mujangane mulya wendi fao. Abana bange mujangane mulya se wendi fao. Mulikombe ndagala abana bange mujangane mulya se wendi fao. Mulikombe ndagala baganda bange ne mulya se wendi fao. Mulikombe ndagala waire chikaire kairo malaka twala butwale kasita chifumba moba bataka batyama ne balya bataka batyama ne balya. You look scared. Why do you look scared? Something wonderful has happened to you. Perhaps you think you have been abducted. You are listening to the lies you heard back home. You have not been abducted. You have been chosen. You have been chosen by the power of the Holy Spirit to cleanse the people of Africa. No school, no hope, and no future.
While camped in a camp, how I stand feeling alone, yet surrounded by folks, my nakedness exposed. For where is my privacy? My children are not children anymore, for they have seen it all. My hands are tied. I'm like a man with no destination. Which woman would be so kind to wait for such a weakling? The cries never cease. The problems never end. Anger, jealous, loneliness is what surrounds me. Nothing is for me anymore. Everything is for us all. No land, no food, no security, no sanity, no hope, but to look in wonder and wait for a savior. A Savior to restore my hope. I yearn to live. I yearn to prosper. Internally displaced. Internally not dead. When watered, I strike. When sheltered, I camp in peace. When educated, I dream. I dream big. I dream to celebrate my future.
Mbuya, mbuya, mbuya sebo musule yo bulya we wanabelo kwa mukenguru bulya sebo. Mbuya sebo. Mbuya sebo. Mbuya sebo. Jode jode baba. Obulele bwembuga oyolera dana mzane koto. Obulele bwembuga oyolera dana mzane koto. Obulele bwembuga walalala bagenda munide. Obulele bwembuga jitana mpirima mukwano gwange. Obulele bwembuga akajigijiga kagenda kunzisanze. Obulele bwembuga walalala bagenda munide. Obulele bwembuga walalala bagenda munide. Mama obulele bwembuga nyimba yagatira yagala natamwa. Obulele bwembuga walalala obulago sindele. Mama obulele bwembuga walalala empologoma endyaze. Obulele bwembuga njode njode baba. Obulele bwembuga oyolera dana mzane koto. Obulele bwembuga oyolera ddala.
And so, with the little music that I did, I started a foundation called Hope North in Kiriandongo. As an artist, I'm proud to say we were able to continue to support over 3,000 young people with education, and a lot of them are graduates. As I continue my life, and I work now as the chairperson board of trustees for Uganda National Cultural Center, and I'm the president nominee of the Rotary Club of Kampala. We thank you. So, people who are internally displaced, all they need is to participate in the process of liberating themselves. It's important to give the victims a voice, opportunity, because they will also serve to make it possible for other people. I thank you very much. And so I wrote this last song, which we are going to play for you, which is saying, in whatever we do in life, do things that bring peace. Because life is as delicate as this pot, as clay. A lot of you have seen this dance around the cultural troops, but I wrote that dance as I dropped my mother away from our home in Pajule to Boyale, where we were displaced. Thank you. Thank you. Hitimjami lobo makelo kun ikuni waro loba en muchweyo in hano kuinyi mada wapo yorwa na chweyo kelo wi lobo ni miro kuj Timjami lobo makelo kun ikuni waro na chweyo no chweyo wa
wa miroku. Makelo bal, yene wilo boni wa miroku. Ayatim jami mama kelo kuchilo bokuni waro tubanga yada. Jami no wen makelo ban. Aye wilo boni wa miroku. Ayatim jami mama kelo kuchilo bokuni waro tuba ayada ne jami duju wen makelo ban aye wilo boni wa miroku ayatim jami mama kelo kuchilo bokuni waro tuba ayada
Thank you.
Wow, 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 wow. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello? Yeah? Thank you very much, Muzizi and Sembo. What a beautiful production. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to day 2 of our colloquium on internal displacement in Africa. We're going to continue with the discussions from day 1 and with the presentations. Muzizi and Sembo has helped us set such a fantastic pace for day 2, and we'll be moving on to the next part of our program. So on our next agenda, we have speakers today from Uganda, Mozambique, Cameroon, and Nigeria, who will again be sharing with us critical analysis on the IDP policy as we continue to identify ways forward on what needs to be improved. So kicking us off today, we have Ms. Galindo Alio, who is going to be discussing how to use public interest litigation to increase state responsibility and accountability to IDPs in Uganda. She works with the Center for Justice Studies and Innovations. Galindo, you're welcome.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me. It's hard to follow a performance like that. It's unfair, actually, to have music and then have a lawyer come and have boring things to talk about, right? But I'll try my best to keep this as entertaining as possible, as well as keep the technical words out of things. I understand that it's not only technical people here, but also people who need to understand public interest litigation outside the realm of litigation in the lawyer's world. Again, my name is Aliyo Galindo. I know it's a difficult name, so I'll put it right there for purposes of remembering the same. So I'll be talking about how we can use public interest litigation to increase state responsibility. Now, I was hesitant to introduce myself as a public interest litigator because, first of all, I would think every advocate is a public interest advocate. And then again, even beyond that, every individual is an advocate for public interest. So I think you will see how this is elaborated in today's presentation. Now, sorry, the clicker's, okay. Now this quote, I chose it purposely because I think it's the essence, in my opinion, of public interest litigation. It says, in the long run, the public interest depends on private virtue. And why that is important is, as an individual, if you recognize that there's a public interest or rights that are being violated, it is then your imperative to come forward and say, in public interest, I would like court to make a determination for this and this. So it is your individual imperative, which means when you see news about IDPs on TV and you see particular human rights violations, it is your initiative to first of all identify that these are violations on a human rights level, and then further to take initiative on a public interest level. Now, this is public interest litigation in how it's been generalized and defined worldwide. But to begin with, public interest, and you can see the highlighted words: general welfare of the public, recognition and protection, and then public as a whole has a stake, which means just because I feel I went to Cafe Java's and my coffee wasn't served right, I should sue them in public interest. You see, it must, whatever rights have been violated, have to be violated at a large scale. It has to be a bigger stake. It's not just you as an individual. It has to be a bigger group of individuals. So as you can see, legal actions are brought to protect and enforce these rights that individuals feel have been violated. Now, sorry about this. The national legal framework. Now, the first article you see, Article 52, is basically the backdrop from which public interest litigation lies. In essence, the Constitution says, if you're a person and you identify violation of human rights, you have an avenue, and the Constitution provides that avenue under Article 52. Article 51, which is the backdrop of Article 52, basically is for individuals, but this one says, beyond individuals, how do we have the public interest taken into consideration? We also have Article 3.4 of the Constitution, which basically imposes that right and duty to every individual, every Ugandan to bring, you have the right to come up and put a voice, not just for your own interest, but the interest of the rest. And you can see the Judicature Fundamental Rights and Freedoms Enforcement Rules. Those are, again, I'm sorry to bring in the legal language, but those are basically the rules that conform in terms of procedure for which you can bring you can bring litigation under public interest litigation. Now, I brought these two laws. Now, the reason I brought these, and there are many. This is not to say that these are the only, but sometimes laws, in the way they are crafted, have provisions that have the public play a role. So for instance, the Criminal Procedure Code Act, a private person can make an arrest that is public interest. If you see something happen, you can make a private arrest. That is in public interest. So even the Civil Procedure Act in bringing in cases of, say, public nuisance, right? So they're the different acts that have components of public interest. I think even the National Environmental Act, I don't know if in its amendment, they still take into consideration you being able to come to court because of an environmental issue. Beyond that, this is the procedure for institution of public interest litigation cases. Of course, the procedure is technical. It's beyond what has been put here. Of course, there are fees to be paid, there are rules to be followed. But even before that, you know that who are the parties you're going against? Who are these entities, persons? Is it the government? And if it is government, you are suing the Attorney General. And these are the parties that you will typically find in public interest because they represent, Attorney General, of course, representing government, the interest of the public. Now, some of those remedies highlighted there, what can you then get out of public interest litigation? You have declarations. You can say, okay, so maybe parts of an act that are existent are violating human rights of a particular group. Maybe they're violating the human rights of IDPs. Or you can say, I want a particular order a particular entity to do this, or order a particular entity to stop doing this because they are violating rights of a particular group of persons. So those are the remedies. But one thing you should note is that if you are coming to court on a public interest litigation umbrella, you cannot seek for costs. If you're saying this is for public interest, you can't say, look, there's a violation of rights of people in northern Uganda, but I want 50 million. So in essence, you cannot do that. And if you can see the second point, ordinary plaint, you can then go for, if there are additional relief, say damages have occurred to specific persons whose human rights have been violated, you can then go ahead to receive these damages through an ordinary plaint, a different procedure, and I won't go into those technical bits, but that is just something you ought to know. Now, this criteria for a claim under public interest, I know it's wordy, but I'm going to try as much as possible to make it as simple as possible. Now, in essence, what public interest litigation tries to say is that there's a criteria. You can't just come, like I'd mentioned before, and say, I'm here for public interest. You must fall under particular criteria. In essence, courts have said you shouldn't be a busybody who's just sitting there saying, I'm doing this for public interest. There is a criteria you have to follow. Now, the first 4 that you're seeing there listed is that whatever you're coming forward for, it should affect a significant number of people. It should be of a broad public concern, or impact on disadvantaged or marginalized groups. And it must be for the common good, the public common good. So even beyond that, the remedies you seek, have you gone to the right court, in this instance, the High Court or the Constitutional Court? And even beyond that, you fit this minimum criteria. So you're saying, okay, if for instance, in the case of IDPs, I think we can agree this is a significant group of persons. So if even beyond that, you come to court, and you will see illustrated later that each case is different, and this applies to any case beyond public interest litigation. Each case is very unique and specific to the facts that they present, so which means even if you fall under this basic criteria, you may not succeed in a claim for public interest litigation. Hopefully I can demonstrate why as we continue. Now, these are just some of the cases that you can see if you even just open up your phones and Google. These are some of the cases under public interest litigation. You can see SEPL, that's one of their cases that they have done under public interest litigation. Some of these cases have been against electricity tariffs because they do affect the public, whether it's about a particular health situation. They have been, over time, since the 1995 Constitution, brought before court on public interest litigation levels. But also beyond that, they have also been brought by, for lack of a better word, selfish individuals sometimes. People who come in, again, like I said, seeking costs in a public interest level. The other thing I should note is that even before we go into IDPs, I think you can see the statistics. Even with the concept note that we've looked at for this particular colloquium, and the statistics you've seen over the years, we're talking about millions of people. We're talking about peaks of conflict. We're talking about internal displacement on a level of climate change. And these numbers, in essence, are saying there's a big impact, not just in the economy of Uganda, but a global impact of IDPs. But public interest says that even though you have a big impact, there's so many people, it is affecting their human rights, there is a context you have to put. Court is the last resort. In essence, you should have done so many things before you come to court and say, look, our human rights have been violated. Whether this criteria is a good or bad thing is something that I hope by the end we will decide in presentation of that. Now, there are not too many public interests, and I'm saying this because I think by the judiciary census that was done in 2016, I don't know if they've done one after that, but we had about 114,000 cases that were pending before courts around the country. And I'm mentioning that number and in trying to put the context of public interest litigation. There are very few cases that are done in public interest litigation. Is this a bad thing? Is this a good thing? Again, I'll let you decide. It means, in essence, not too many people recognize that this is something that they can bring forward. Not too many people recognize this as an avenue. So there are different arguments towards why maybe this is something that hasn't risen as far as we wanted to go. The other thing is that there is no money in public interest litigation, as mentioned before. So the disadvantage comes also in the side of advocates, which means when someone comes with a case to you and says, look, I think a certain group of persons' rights have been violated, and I want you as an advocate to help me go to court. The question then is, has that advocate properly analyzed that case and said, okay, it's public interest litigation, let's move it forward to a point where we do have a stand in court. But most cases, advocates want the money. So you will take in a case even if you see that they do not fall within the basic criteria of public interest litigation. This quote here analyzes a bit of the causes of public interest litigation. Where do some of these things arise that bring up the issue of public interest litigation? So it says an individual in promoting his interest may injure the public interest. A nation in promoting the general welfare may check the interest of a part of its members. In essence, you, or let's just use an example, me, I could be going about my life, and because I'm going about my life, I am violating somebody else's rights, whether by my actions or inactions. And similarly, the government may, by generally putting in policies, regulations, whatever laws, they may unknowingly check certain rights of particular individuals. This is what this is basically trying to say. And you can see causes on this side and the rights that are possibly violated. So if you have, sorry about that, if you have climate change, conflicted violence, poverty, I'm not going to go through all the causes, but those are the causes on the right, and the rights, sorry, on the left and the rights on the right. So we have rights on health, protection from deprivation of property, and the rest. These are stipulated under the policy, and I'm sure you know a lot of them. But in essence, this shows you, because IDPs are still citizens of Uganda, just because they've received a particular status as IDPs doesn't mean they cease to not have particular rights. So they do have they still conform to the laws of Uganda. They still have rights, and as such, if the violations of these particular rights have been committed, then they have the right under public interest litigation. So in essence, if we have, sorry, the slides have gone off a bit, but in essence, in the context of IDPs, thank you. In the context of IDPs, we already established that they have the rights, which means they already fall under the basic criteria for public interest litigation. The rights are there, which means you come to court and say, this right, A, B, C, D, have been violated, and as such, we are coming to court to, first of all, declare or order A, B, C, D. So that is the essence of showing that IDPs have these particular rights, and what specific rights. The policy goes ahead to demonstrate how they can try to mitigate the violation of these rights. I think you've seen references to property, how are they resettled, how are they given back land, how, all these issues come in because the policy tries. But is the policy just a minimum standard? Is the policy good enough? And it's a policy, it's not binding, so is this something that we can take into consideration? Sorry, so I've lost the slide, but as they come on. So again, sorry, as they bring it back on, let's look at public interest again in the context of IDPs. We have, on average, about 1.7 million, give or take, at a certain time in the history of the phenomenon of IDPs. So which means, arguably, that's about 4% of the Ugandan population. Someone will say, if that's 4%, is that really public interest litigation? Does it matter? If they're just 4%, it seems insignificant, right? But clearly, the numbers matter here. We're talking about millions of people, so the numbers do matter. Now, also juxtaposed with the understanding that we have only a policy for IDPs, and on the other hand, refugees, we have an act, we have regulations, we have strategies, we have interventions by different people. In other words, in my estimation, it would seem as though there's a lot of effort when it comes to refugees. This is not to say I'm not criticizing anything. I'm just trying to say that there seems to be a need to pull up the effort on the side of IDPs, because if we have just a policy, it is a concern. Climate change is an ongoing phenomenon, which means we have to look at the future. If the policy is the only thing we are holding for the future, then we are in trouble when it comes to public interest. So this is the ripple effect of internal displacement and why it's a public concern. In essence, when people are displaced in a country, these are the effects. Most of them, of course, being economic, but they ripple on into the economy in the sense that it would affect, say, if you look at the statement on the rise of informal sector, which means you have a lot of them not being educated, so there's a rise in the informal sector over the formal sector, which means not too many taxes, revenue. It's a ripple effect on the economy. So you can see that even if you're sitting in Kampala and the internally displaced persons in, say, Mbale, and you feel that's not a concern of yours, in actual sense, the ripple effect does get to you. The cultural standards evolve. The meaning of public interest also, of course, evolves. And the essence of this quote is that even in finding solutions, even when it comes to public interest litigation, we must evolve in an understanding, even with the policy, and I'm hoping that's what we're getting to do with this colloquium. We are advancing our policy to take into consideration contemporary issues of IDPs, not the situation in 2005, but the situation as it is in 2021. And not only that, we have studies that are projecting the possibilities of IDPs as a result of climate change. There are statistics showing, okay, in 2030, we could have this number of people. Can we take that data and put it into consideration into maybe adapting laws, policies, all that? And these are some of the recommendations, and of course, they also form some of the steps that you need to take before you go to court for public interest litigation. In essence, the first question court will ask you is, have you tried these steps before coming to court to say or declare that particular rights have been violated? And some of these steps, of course, include engagement of government stakeholders and so on and so forth, as well as engagement of the different structures. We have OPM, we have committees, right from the district, national all the way to district and sub-county. There are all these different strategies in place under the policy. But then the question is, are they enough? Say, for instance, right now an earthquake happened in Central, people are displaced, and human rights are violated. They are being violated in real time. Do we have time to say, approach court and say, look, there are particular rights being violated right now, could you help us declare? And we all know that the court process takes long. Are we able to then wait for those long processes? Maybe we need to change our procedures, maybe have a particular time frame for public interest cases. These are all concerns that we need to take into consideration while fulfilling the criteria under public interest litigation. Now, we have even I think chapter 5 of the policy has the different strategies you can use. It implores even the media in understanding, okay, so puts it out there for people to understand the context of IDPs. Maybe if people recognize that human rights are being violated, they can come forward. So these are, in invoking these provisions, maybe, I don't know how well the policy has been used, and that's a study I'm not sure someone has done, but if that study has been done, with these structures in place, are they working? The IDPs here, they could tell us, are they working? When particular situations happen, do these structures aid? Do they help? When human rights have been violated, what has the procedure been in the past? In establishing whether they're good enough, in establishing whether the policy is a bare minimum standard, so that when you come to court, you say, all the strategies are not enough, all the systems in place are not enough, all the actors are not helping. So with that, I think I'll just close by saying that, again, beyond it being the advocate's role in public interest litigation, it is also an individual imperative in understanding the context of public interest litigation. And hopefully the colloquium is a call to all participants beyond just the ones in here and the ones online, but a call to understanding the importance of public interest litigation, especially in the context of IDPs. Thank you so much again for having me. It's indeed very exciting always to have an opportunity to talk in public interest. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, again, that was Ms. Galindo Alio. I think you make some very interesting recommendations, because one of the strategies after this colloquium that the Populist Foundation will be leading is a petition to Parliament. And I think, Mr. Obedi, there are some interesting points there about, is what's being done enough? And is there enough to build a case to take, the government to court to enforce some of the recommendations that have been made over this two-day discussion? Thank you very much for that context. So our next lineup of speakers, we are going to have a perspective from Mozambique. We will be having Professor Inez Raimundo. Professor Inez is an associate professor at Eduardo Mondlane University in Mozambique. And Professor Inez will be sharing a critical analysis of the IDP policy with a perspective from Mozambique. Professor Inez, you're welcome. Good morning, Professor Inez. Just a moment, we can't hear you. Just a moment. Please say something.
Hello?
Okay. Okay, we can hear you.
Is that fine? Can you hear me?
Much better, much better, much better. Just give us 5 seconds as they are catching up the feed. Okay, we can see you
take
as
your
well.
time.
Fantastic. You're welcome.
Okay.
Please go
So
ahead with
may
your
I?
presentation. You're welcome, yes.
Oh,
Hello?
hello.
All right, Professor Ines, thank you so much. We were able to follow you. We didn't have any technical glitch in following your presentation. So thank you for a fantastic presentation. We followed it through and for giving us such a detailed perspective from Mozambique.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. I also see that we have a number of guests joining us online. For those of you joining us online, you're welcome to this colloquium on internal displacement in Africa. Next on our agenda is we're going to take a break. We're going to have a tea break for people to stretch, get a cup of coffee, and come back. We're going to take a 12-minute tea break, so we'll be back at exactly 11:10. After the tea break, we'll have 2 more presentations. We'll have a presentation from Ms. Nicole Waza from Cameroon, and then we'll have a presentation from Ms. Asmau Gangzo from Nigeria. After those 2 presentations, we'll open up and have a plenary and have a discussion again back to what we started yesterday around what recommendations should be adopted on the way forward for Uganda and the IDP policy as well as the Kampala Convention. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you again at 11:10. Please welcome Ms. Nicolene. Hello, Nicolene. Can you hear us? Okay, just give us 30 seconds to set up the audio.
Okay.
All right. I think, okay, that's better. Just keep talking.
Yeah, hello.
Fantastic. We can hear you clearly, Nicolene.
Okay.
All right, over to you.
Okay. Okay, thank you so very much. I'm Nicolene Wenushi Waze Tumasan from Cameroon. I'm a gender and development expert consultant and the founder.
Nicolene, thank you very much. You know, we've enjoyed listening to the perspective and especially just understanding the context of Cameroon. I think there are some things which are similar, but there are certain situations that are different, and it's been very interesting to learn all the mechanisms that are in place from the national to the community level, and also just the added gender perspective that you've included in your presentation. So thank you. For those of you who have questions or comments on Nicolene's presentation, please note them down. We'll be having a plenary immediately after our next presentation. And for those of you also joining us online, you can share your questions in the Q&A portion or your comments in the chat. So ladies and gentlemen, we'll have our final presentation, and we'll be focusing now on Nigeria and be getting a perspective from Nigeria. So joining us is Ms. Asmau Gangso Benziz, and she works with the Center for Nonviolence and Gender Advocacy, and will also be giving us a perspective on the IDP situation in Nigeria, as well as looking at the Kampala Convention and Uganda's IDP policy. Ms. Asmau, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, moderator.
Okay, fantastic. We can hear you clearly. Good morning to you.
Oh.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Asmau. I think that it's been a very interesting breakdown, how you've looked at both Uganda and Nigeria and given us such a good comparative overview. At this juncture, I want to open up the conversations for us to have a plenary. So today we've had 4 different perspectives that have been shared. One from Uganda here, by Ms. Galindo on public interest litigation and what that would look like. And then also a perspective on Mozambique and what the IDP situation is there, as well as some of the strategies that are being implemented on the ground and recommendations. We've also had the perspective from Cameroon, including the issues which have, some issues were related. I saw some people really nodding their heads when she raised the issues around refugees versus host communities, and governments need to act more on the issues of lost livelihoods. And now finally also the comparative analysis from Nigeria, which has really broken down their process on the framework and their recently passed IDP policy and how that implementation needs to work. So I'd like to open this up to a plenary for those who have questions or comments. For those of you who are joining us online, please feel free to share your questions in the Q&A section. Yeah, thank you. So anyone have any comments? Richard, perhaps you would be the first to share a bit of your thoughts on the presentations that have come in and how that relates to Uganda's own process. Let's also get a microphone for those who will be sharing.
Hello. Yeah. Thank you so much. When GENIDA contacted me to put this concept, I knew where we were going, and I would like to assure everybody, physically here and online, that we know what we're doing. We've map. In the interest of time, I would like to thank my colleague, Professor Ines, Asmao, and Nicole, and others that have given their presentations. Those are really, really very, very good recommendations. And we can engage at any level, even at the AU. Personally, I attend African Union, even closed door consultations. So there is nothing that is going to block us from what we're doing. We just need to do the right thing. Uganda Human Rights Commission comes in handy, and I must thank you for the commitment. We can take this to another level. Not because we want to usurp people's responsibilities and things of the sort, but people are suffering out there. At the community level, at the grassroots level, regional level, sub-regional level, national level, even at the continental level. All what we are trying to say is, let's minimize the suffering. Just look at the case of Nigeria. And I promise you, we shall actually bring a delegation from Uganda to learn from what you're doing, and we'll also pick lessons from what we are doing here. But thank you for bringing in the aspect of the African Union. It is not just a white elephant in Addis Ababa. We would have an AU program in Oyam. For us, we have the mandate to just only invoke to invoke the instrument. If it is about the youth, we shall invoke the African Youth Charter. If it is about the children, the issue that we are advocating. And it should speak to the reality on the ground. It shouldn't just be within the corridors of Addis Ababa or any of the mechanism. She mentioned the African peer review mechanism. Actually, I'm even heading for the latest AU mechanism, what they call the African Continental Free Trade areas. I like the aspect of the regional bloc that she brought. You can imagine what is happening in South Sudan. And just last week, on Friday, we were in this hall with the East African Legislative Assembly, members of parliament, Ugandan member of parliament, civil society, and Siatini was the one heading that, on issues of trade, non-trade barriers and things of the sort, domestic resource mobilization and things of the sort. So at the regional level, there's what we call the regional economic communities. So why would South Sudan, why can South Sudan be put on the spot? Even if it means putting the leaders on the spot. Why are you killing Kenyan and Ugandan traders, yet we are pretending that we are actually going for regional integration? So these are issues that, you know, the good thing is we are not going to avoid integration. Nobody will avoid it and nobody will block it, because we shall go with the coalition of the willing. If you're not willing, you will be left behind. If a country is not cooperating because you have issues here and there, you will be left behind. Actually, I like it in the sense that the East Africans are actually, they're actually integrating. It's only the leaders failing us. At the ordinary level, at the border level, East African citizens are actually integrating. That is just to pick one block. Then when you take it to West Africa, the ECOWAS, take it down to South Africa, the SADC, and other blocks, maybe from, there are about 5 blocks at the AU level. So you will not avoid all these things. And we just need to do our role. Civil society, do your role. Government, do your role. Donors, do your role. And it would be pointless for instance, South Sudan, I'm just giving example, that is at the level of EAC. Then pick it at the level of East African, International Great Lakes, International Conference of the Great Lakes, or pick it at the level of East and Horn of Africa. Even if you don't want to take the mantle, that's the African Union. But we have all these inroads. There's no spaces that we cannot go into. If it means bringing those leaders, and I like the aspect that Nicole and Asmao brought, the issue of compliance and accountability. And that's where the state actually hide because of sovereignty. What is sovereignty if it is actually not for the common, for the interest of the common person? And that's where I'll actually put South Sudan on the spot. And we're also trying to push for review of the East African Community Treaty. No state should actually hide under issues of state sovereignty or compliance, yet you're trying to run away from accountability. Even when you pick it at the level of Minister of Foreign Affairs, those Ugandans and Kenyan traders that were shot in South Sudan, you always leave it to the level of the family suffering, those who have lost their dead ones. No even intergovernmental negotiation going on, or even to make investigation and actually bring the perpetrators to books. Now, so I'm just telling you this, that there's no any avenues that we cannot reach, whether at the national level, at the grassroots level, at the continental level. We have all these avenues, and they'll give us the spaces. You only need to package your information well, and then you present the issues. 3 quick things. The presentation by Sepil, that was the best presentation. And I like it from the point where we say the court is the last resort. The court should be the last resort. And in this meeting, physically, we have representation of people whose rights have been violated. They are victims, they're indigents, they cannot even afford the service of a lawyer. They cannot afford the service of a lawyer, but they took the mantle and took government to court in 2016. We went through the processes. We're at the level of, we concluded the locus for the injustices done in northern Uganda. There were people whom camps were established in their land. Now that's where the aspect of host community comes in. And there is, in your presentation, you brought it very clear. There are frameworks that deal with refugees, but for IDPs, they're actually not there. So these are people who are actually trying to seek redress for the grievances and concern, the damages caused on their land and environment. And you very well know that in that policy that is actually being housed in the office of the Prime Minister, there's a provision for decommissioning. And that wasn't done. Not even a mere thank you was actually given to these people who hosted these IDPs. That, okay, you know what, thank you. Yeah, we appreciate there was a humanitarian situation then, but then even a mere thank you should have been given to them. It was not done. And that is an abscondment on the part of whoever is in office of the Prime Minister. Whether a commissioner, there should have been, these camps in northern Uganda should have been decommissioned. So they absconded, somebody absconded on his or her role. I don't know which level. Even the association went to office of the Prime Minister, they met the former Prime Minister, and efforts were being made, but in one way or the other, one of the commissioners even chased them away. And you don't do things like that. I have a lot of things to say, but we know what we are doing. We know the roadmap. We can penetrate and go in any spaces. Whether in Addis Ababa, we shall take these representatives. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard. We have one question from Christopher Bakuk online. Does the implementation of the Kampala Convention correlate with democratic government, or do a range of states adopt it and attempt to protect? I'll direct this question to Asmau. So Asmau, you'll respond to this question, but let me get more questions or comments, and then we'll come back to you, Asmau and Nicolene. Are there any questions or comments or reflections on recommendations? Yeah, let's have a microphone.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. My name is Masumbuko Charles, working with Afford, based in Kasese. I am so much privileged with the speakers that I've presented today. But my first question goes to, I think, Sipil, about the litigation process. I have picked a lot of interest in your works, but I'm aware that there's a challenge of especially lawyers who offer pro bono services. How would you assist the IDPs in Kasese or as Afford as an organization? Because there are some violations in terms of the rights of these IDPs that they are being evidenced in the camp, and we feel that they are not even getting the proper services. How do you help Afford to push the interests of the IDPs as regards to the public litigation procedures? Then still to CPIL, is the issue of enforcement and accountability. Because in most cases, when litigates win, the implementation fails. I tend to bring this still with an issue that we had an experience in Kasese. We're looking at a public issue to do with environmental degradation, because we are into environmental rights. But the challenge is, even when we won, because at that time we were working with NetPil, even when we won, by the implementation, because the enforcement now, sometimes they have interest vis-a-vis the consequences around it. So how does litigation procedures help in curbing such challenges? Thank you. Then this one goes to Cameroon. I don't still remember, I wrote the name wrongly, but I'm sure the moderator will echo this.
Nicolene.
Nicolene, yes. This goes to Nicolene. I am aware that Cameroon signed or is a signatory to the Refugee Convention. But then, the issue of forced migrations, I think, is also much seen with the government side, because when you reach at the IDPs, especially the Nigerian camps, the way she was explaining, they seem to be seen as a threat to the government. Whereas on the other side of the host communities, actually the Cameroon people who are in IDPs access the full rights of the full rights like any other colleagues. Now, my thinking is it's better for them as Cameroonians to, I think, look at advocating for the connection now between the policy and action, because they have the policy in place, but the implementation is the challenge. And then the way she was mentioning in her presentation, it seems like even the registration is still a challenge in terms of these refugees. Getting the numbers, getting to know the numbers down there. So I pose the question, like, how does Cameroon own the registration of refugees? Why does Cameroon fail to own the registration process? Because for refugees in Cameroon, most of them are under UNHCR. Actually, it's the one that has data. So I tend to see it as, based on the Kampala Convention, let's also carry this and adopt it in Cameroon, such that it also helps to broaden the aspect of the struggle to realize the rights of the IDPs. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
The last one. Okay. Maybe it's a compliment. I thank the Cameroon, the Nigeria people, about the adoption and having the strategy or the policy in place. And I look at it as a positive impact based on the Kampala Convention. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other questions or comments? Yes.
Thank you very much. My name is Diana Akampereza. I work with the Uganda Human Rights Commission. Mine is not a question, but sort of a compliment on what Ms. Adio has discussed. First and foremost, I must note that we've taken note of the different issues that have been raised as a commission. And I would like to add on what Ms. Alio has said on the issue of access to justice for people in IDPs. The commission is constitutionally mandated to investigate complaints at its own initiative or by a group of people. So I believe we can use this avenue to ensure that the rights of these people are protected and promoted in this country. More so, the commission also produces reports. These reports are submitted to Parliament and they are on different human rights issues. So if we really use these avenues, I'm sure that the rights of the vulnerable will be protected and promoted. In conclusion, I must confirm that the Commission is ready and willing to work with our partners to ensure that the rights of these people are protected and promoted. I thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Do we have any other questions on the left before we come to the right side of the room? We'll take one more from Abraham.
Thank you so much members in this meeting and our online discussers. Basically, I want only just to applaud some of our online discussers who have given some a good, a lively example from other country, and that is a way to go, especially for us here, to adapt with what is happening with other places. Much more so. Basically, I want to talk to my sister here. She has presented a very good document. That document is a very good one. We have ever tried it. You know, public litigation is something which is very important. It is within the framework of our mandate, especially people who are enlightened. People, the elites, people who knows what is wrong and what is good. Those are the people who will always identify mistakes against the oppressed. So they come up with a very good white paper document because they know the procedures. We have a lot of procedures to succeed in litigations. And that's why our Uganda Human Rights Commission, they always wait. They need such kind of individuals to come up with a very good document with evidence base. Then they end up coming, they chipped in immediately. But where are those people who have that lion heart of standing on the truth? We have very many lawyers. Some of them are not employed. Very many lawyers in these countries. Others are graduating each and every day, each and every year. Others are graduating online. They are there, no work. Others are even ended up actually resorting to become businessmen, even not practicing law. But yet there is already a problem amid the society. My sister in the Uganda Human Rights Commission. The problem is there. People are in problem. People are being killed. People are being kidnapped. People are being raped. But nobody can come up with it. We have a very good, we have some other people who volunteered. For instance, like in Acholi sub-region, we have some of the lawyers, the one of our own, they came up. They stood very firm on the issue of Acholi Ward Clement, giving free services. We took the government to do actually what the government want. Taking the government to the court, it doesn't mean that actually you are accusing the government. You are only actually reminding the government on what the government have failed to identify. So when the actually what they claim with our young lawyers, people came up, we team up with the support from our religious and cultural leaders and local leaders, they came up, and you know what? When the document reaches, when the court overruled, when the court ruled over the actually what the claimant case, it was taken to the president. Then the president said, hey, is it like that? Pay these people. And the payments started. Then our brothers also from the Lao, they came up. One of them, lawyer Kibwanga, he came up. And later on, when the Lao sub-region also, their money was also given. So it is upon us, especially we, the young people outside there, the one online. You are a legal practitioner. Please come up, identify problems, not only on the IDPs. Yeah? We have even some other businessmen. They are being extorted. We have the elderly. Some of the money. We are having of recent, there was money which was given to the vulnerable, like in Kitgum. And that's why I want to thank the people like the Ojara Mapenduzi, the chairman of the MP for Gulu municipality, the chairperson of Public Account Committee. He said that local government. He said that he want to start exposing the real people from his constituency. And he started from Gulu, the town clerk, the treasurers, big people pretending to become border.
Thank you, Abraham.
Yeah. So for this matter here, I think with that, we can actually go in. And another thing, we should not actually lose also interest in the office of the human rights authorities. Thank you very much. That's a little bit of my submission. But otherwise, I want to thank all the people on online, whatever the discussion from Cameroon, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, all of them were very good for us. That's a very good lesson for us. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. So we'll move to this half of the room and we'll take questions.
Thank you very much, moderator, and dear ladies and gentlemen. I think the question before us is not about the policy. The best policy in Uganda as well as in African countries, I think there's no, as far as I'm concerned, there's no problem whatsoever. Those are best policies they have. This Kampala Convention and so on, they're very good. But the problem is what people are talking about. For example, taking the government to court by the late Oponya was wrong, very wrong, because those who are the people who took the government to court in their own interest, not for the public. Up to now, the actual people have not been paid. That is a fact. So we cannot quote people who took government to court and nothing is done. The government is very happy that you take the government to court, so the government can now fall back its hands because those people have eaten the money. That is not a good example to cite in a meeting like this. Secondly, the Human Rights Commission is a commission appointed by the government of Uganda. Go to Lokole in Gulu. Children who have been abused, sexually abused, rejected by their own parents, the community, the government, international community are there up to now. What have they done? We brought their petition up to Parliament here, on the floor of Parliament. Up to now, no response from government of Uganda. So let us not talk about things that we don't understand. These are very painful things that you don't know people. The people in Lao, in Acholi, in Teso, in Kachese, those people who have gone through pains, up to now, they are still carrying their pain in their hearts. What are we doing as a country? What are you doing as citizens of Uganda? What are we doing as members of Parliament of Uganda? Members of Parliament come from all over the place in Uganda. But what are they doing? Are they representing their own people or their own interests? I wish those people were here. But unfortunately, they have not come. Even the speaker who comes from Acholi has not come. Why? And this is very painful. So, the Luo has a saying, La tong palatek la dira ya omo. It means that if somebody has very important thing, only a person like him can go and get that thing. You don't send your child to get that thing from him, especially an axe for cutting trees, because a child will, misuse it. But if you go yourself, he will give you. So in this particular case, your role is to confront the president of Uganda, because he's the head of the government. When the president speaks, these days, President of Uganda has been touched. He talks about human rights very seriously. Why don't we go to him instead of having meeting like this? See the president and see what he can do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think part of the process is to get as much input into what needs to be changed, and then follow up on that petition process and see how far we can go until we get some changes. But thank you for that. Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you again to the online presenters. I just have one specific question, especially to Nigeria, with regard to a recommendation that was made also in my presentation. Taking up strategies on a needs-based approach, meaning that we are saying there are different challenges faced by the IDPs, and as such, strategies should be developed specifically addressing those needs, and thus structures should be developed to address those specific needs. It's a recommendation in Uganda, but it's clearly illustrated in Nigeria. So the question is, from the time the Kampala Convention was domesticated in Nigeria to the point at which we have these structures established, has there been a significant, and by significant I mean even statistical proof of the benefits of having a needs-based approach to IDPs? And if there is a statistical analogy, then it would be good for Uganda to take that up and say, okay, Nigeria did this, and this has been the effect on the economy. So I think that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Galindo. But before you hand over the mic, because you are one of the presenters, there was one question that was directed at you, so maybe you could respond to it as well, on the litigation process.
Okay, thank you so much. The first question was in regard to legal aid services coming from Accord. Now, the question was specifically addressed to CEPIL. Now, and as much as I'm not part of CEPIL, that was invited by CEPIL, I would think my general answer would be this. We have entities, we have legal aid providers network that CEPIL is part of, that several other organizations are part of, and they handle legal aid matters. The question would then be, has Accord approached these? And I would even think just entities such as LASPNet or ULS or Justice, Law and Order sector are relevant in settings such as these. So even just approaching them and having a discussion goes a long way in helping with legal aid, because they are specialized in dealing with these matters and therefore can handle anything that you say comes as a result of human rights violations. The second question was enforcement and accountability. Now, this is a challenge, generally speaking, in a litigation sense. It's a challenge not just on a public interest litigation sense. You go to court, but how long can you be, can your remedies be given to you? And I would think the implementation challenge here would be on the orders. Say, for instance, we looked at the remedies that a court can give you. Most of these remedies are declarations. It's basically court saying, yes, that's a human rights violation. A declaration like that, if it's a declaration with regard to a law, the enforcement would mean, can the parliament then change the law to take away the human rights violations? That could take a long process. You know how long it takes to have these. So I would think enforcement, it is a big challenge, but then again, in taking into consideration development of policies and other laws and regulations that we are suggesting, could there then be an avenue, maybe even specialized courts when regarding IDPs and whatnot? Maybe that is an avenue, but with regard to challenges, I would think any recommendations with regard to litigation would fall in this particular area. I think I'll just give one last comment with regard to integration of systems. I see we do have a good foundation of persons attending this, but again, just to emphasize that where we do have a platform such as this, it is important to have other entities such as ULS, JLOS, and LASPNet here, because they handle different facets that affect IDPs. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We had, I think, one more comment at the back. We'll take that last one, and then we'll have Asma respond to the two questions that were directed to her.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Yes, my name is Crispo Saturday, and I work with the Legal Aid Service Providers Network. Last minute. Yes, my comment one is on the policies that are in place by the government. Whereas our government of Uganda is doing its best to implement and come up with policies, regulations, the only challenge with what it has is putting them into practice. We well know that Uganda has the best regulations in East Africa, so maybe also Africa. You can look at our constitution. We have the best constitution in the whole world, but the only challenge is, are those rights provisions given being attained by the intended people? Whereas we also have the IDP policy in place. Are those provisions being attained? I'll use a case study of what my brother said from Kasese. Look at the quality of life those IDPs are. When Nyamamba broke up, those guys were just taken and thrown into schools. Those schools, they are nothing like services. Look at water, there's no clothing, there is nothing like bedding. But it is our country coming up with those policies. But implementation issues are still lacking. Then another issue is with the PL. Lastly, I'll note on that on the PL. Yeah, whereas we have the public interest litigation, it's the best strategy that we can use in regard to addressing those cases of IDP. But the challenge is with the resources involved. I think mine could be one. I think those pro bono lawyers, say also civil society, I think they could commit themselves to come and work on this. It's all about coming together, commit efforts, and I think with the cost implications, those can be made. Lastly, in regard to the PL, I think I would like to bring it to the attention of the participants today. LASPED has the PL strategy in place. And it is within this PL strategy that we address to some areas of focus. For example, human rights violations that do happen, public health, safety, and national security, practice reforms through research, lobby, and advocacy, and lastly, the governance and accountability. I think that is my comment. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. And thank you, everyone who's shared your comments and questions. Asmau, if you're still there, I'd like to come back to you because you have two questions that were directed to you. One is from Christopher Babcook, which is about the implementation of the Kampala Convention with correlation with democratic government. Or, you know, do a range of states adopt it and attempt to protect IDPs? The second question was around Nigeria's strategy as well, and the use of a needs-based approach. So if you can respond to that in a minute or two, and then we'll move on to the next program.
Thank you very much, Irene.
Very much, Asmau. Yes, you've answered the question quite well. We do have one comment from Janet Jebichi from Kenya, and she says her recommendation is that laws on national on IDPs should provide clarity on the manner in which registration and maintaining of data on IDPs should be done. There should be clear regulations on collaboration of IDPs' national focal point and the national principal agency responsible for registration of persons in the country to assist in keeping data on IDPs. Nicolene also responded to the question directed to her in the chat, and she said that Cameroon doesn't keep record for anything, especially not for refugees and not for IDPs, not even for the population. So it's a big challenge because the last population census in Cameroon was in 2005. So that's to the question around the data. That said, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you all for participating in this colloquium on internal displacement. Our different speakers from all of the countries, thank you very much for joining us from Nigeria, from Cameroon, from Sierra Leone, from Mozambique, from Kenya, and also right here from Uganda. our representatives from the different communities, from Oyam, from Bale, from Soroti, from Kasese, from northern Uganda and different parts of the country. Thank you also for participating. And also the different representatives from NGOs and the government institutions. Thank you all. At this point, as we come to the close, I am going to hand over to the organizers of the event, the Global Engagement Network for Internal Displacement, which is supported by the Center for Human Rights at the University of Pretoria and the Refugee Law Initiative at the University of London, as well as UK Research and Innovation through its Global Challenges Research Fund. Next on our program, we're going to recognize the GENIDA members of the Uganda chapter. This will be with Richard Obedi and Francis Obonyo, and then I'll invite the Geneva representative Obonyo to then close this meeting. Thank you all for joining us for the last 2 days. Thank you everyone who's participated online. So Richard, please come and take us through the last segment of the event.
Thank you once again, Madam Moderator, for ably taking us through these 2 days. I must thank all the participants, those who came from outside Kampala, Eastern Uganda, Kasese, Northern Uganda, Midwestern, and all those who are actually joining us online. Like I've said when I was responding to some of the queries, we know the roadmap and we know what we want. We even know how to go get it, and we shall go and get it. We are launching a platform that we shall come up with action points. I hope the rapporteurs have been capturing, and we shall draw a 1-year work plan, fully budgeted, for us to do the in-country specific program in the context of Uganda on the issues of IDPs. So at this point in time, I would like if they can bring the board, the signature board. It will just be symbolic. It will be symbolic, but we shall draw the membership of GENIDA Uganda Chapter, and then what we intend to do within the 1 year, and we see what happens after that. So at this point in time, I would like to invite key prominent people to come in front and pen their signatures. And then later on, the rest of the members will also come and join. So it will be the representative from government body, Uganda Human Rights Commission, and then the IDPs, the civil society, the local representation from all the districts, the donor community, any other coalition that is existing, might not be for the issue of IDP, and any other category that we feel, or they feel they can be part of this movement building. Thank you. Uganda Human Rights Commission, you have actually a first partner, and you are our shield. Next should be our bishop, retired. We want the IDP representative. Either okay, all of you come. Kasese, Soroti, Bulisa, the host, community representative. Oyam, I'm forgetting you. Representative of civil society. All civil society. Peace and Shama, Afford. Yeah. LabsNet. Your ED was here yesterday, and thank you for that commitment. Actually, we reached LabsNet with the association. the staff of the populace come. Let's hurry.
Yeah.
We have other categories in the queue. These are the practicing lawyers signing. Can join the team. At this point in time, I would like to call the board representative of the Populace Foundation International to come and append her signature. Then finally, GENIDA. I hope you're all represented. Nobody has been left out, or no organization has been left out. So this is what we shall be using to actually advance our cause. And let's see how it's going to move. We will inform you of every stage of the process. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen,
First of all, I would like to say thank you to all of you for sparing your time to come and attend this colloquium. This has marked the launch of the Uganda GENIDA Chapter, which is going to involve creating more platforms for internally displaced persons to join in with lawmakers, policymakers, the minister, the Uganda Human Rights Commission is here. We have LastNet, which the Center for Public Interest Law is a member with. Maybe LastNet, you could share the contacts for the LastNet legal aid clinics in their regions, because maybe they may need to consult in case of legal aid. So kindly just share your number with them. So I just want to say thank you so much for everyone, both online and physical, for taking time to attend this. This is not going to stop here. As Richard mentioned, we intend to petition Parliament on the same, and we are not going to do it as SEPU or as GENIDA or as the populace, but it has to involve the internally displaced persons themselves. Reverend mentioned that they did that before and nothing yet has been, there's no result that has been immediate. The process is taking longer, but we cannot give up. We have to continually try every attempt, every process, every measure that we can to see to it that these people are catered for. Thank you. Have a wonderful rest of the day.